Hello, and welcome to Off the Rack. I'm Shelley Beyer, and this is part two of the Becoming series. Today, I want to talk about something we don't always expect on the other side of transformation. That moment when you look around and don't recognize your own life anymore. For me, it happened at the barn. After weeks of recovery, I was finally able to go out and see my horse, Sophie. She had been cared for by others, and I was so grateful. But there was this pull in my chest, a guilt, a longing that she didn't know why I wasn't there, why I wasn't doing the chores, why I wasn't feeding her or mucking out her stall. I hadn't even realized how much of myself was wrapped up in those actions. The boots, the pitchfork, the feeling of dirt under my nails. When I pulled up, Sophie came running straight to the gate, just like she always did. And in that moment, I realized something. I was standing there, but I wasn't doing the things I used to do. I wasn't the me who could just show up and handle it all and keep things running smoothly. And it hit me. I wasn't sure who I was without that. I felt lost. Not in a dramatic way, but more like I was in an unfamiliar place, looking for a version of myself I used to know. It wasn't just about the chores I couldn't do. It was about the identity I had built around those actions. The person who was always busy, always giving, always performing. And in that moment, I wasn't that person. And you know what? At first, it felt like I was failing. It felt like I wasn't showing up in the way I should for Sophie, for myself, for my life. But as I stood there, just being with her, I started to feel a subtle shift. A quiet understanding began to unfold. I realized that not being able to do everything didn't mean I wasn't still valuable. It didn't mean I had lost myself. It just meant I was being asked to redefine who I was in this phase. And at that moment, I wasn't just learning to rest. I was learning to be still, to let go, to allow someone else to take care of things. That's when the shift started. It took time to recognize it, but eventually I realized that my worth wasn't in how much I could do. It wasn't in the roles I played. It wasn't in how many things I could check off my list. My worth was simply in being here and showing up as I am, even if I couldn't always be the version of me who did it all. And here's what I started to understand. Being a caretaker doesn't have to mean being the one who does it all. Being a provider can include receiving care. And being a doer doesn't define my value. So many of us are taught to define ourselves by how much we do, how much we give, and how much we can handle. And I was no different. But healing, in its most profound way, taught me that sometimes our greatest act of service to ourselves and others is to receive. Letting go of the idea that I always had to be the one doing, the one carrying, the one in charge was the hardest thing for me to learn. But it was also the most freeing. As I couldn't physically handle everything, my spirit began to expand. In those quieter moments, I began to realize that I didn't have to hustle for my worth. I didn't have to prove anything. And that shift, it didn't come from a single moment. It came slowly over the course of my recovery. It came in tiny, gentle shifts. Like when I chose to rest instead of pushing, when I asked for help and felt the love in return, when I realized that even when I wasn't doing anything, I was still valuable. If you're standing in a life that feels unfamiliar, if you don't recognize yourself quite yet, if the stillness feels unsettling, you're not lost. You're just shifting. You're just being called to a new version of you, a version that knows that rest is a form of growth, a version that trusts that stillness is as important as movement, a version that knows that receiving is just as vital as giving. So let go of the pressure. Let go of the need to perform your way to worth. You don't have to do it all. You don't have to show up in the same way you always have. You are enough just as you are. And the quiet moments, they're the ones that will teach you more than you ever imagined. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Next week, I'll be sharing part 3 of my story and the inner shift that happened. Until next time, be gentle with your heart and kind to your body, and open to the version of you who's quietly waiting to be met.